All right, guys, welcome to Shields on Hoops podcast with me, Brandon Shields, and Nick Peckham. Today we have our first game day edition of the podcast. Thank goodness this is not about football. We're going to focus on the Orange Hoops team, and we're just going to get things rolling. All right. The Orange open up tonight, hosting the Wildcats of New Hampshire, the first time they've ever played New Hampshire, which is hard to believe, being two New Englandish schools. New Hampshire is just a really quick enter before we dive in. Decent last year, about a 500 level squad. They return a pretty tough inside player in Clarence Daniels, and they have some other new pieces as well as a new coach. But we'll get into that in a second. I did want to talk first real quick about the ACC. There's not a whole bunch going on tonight, but if you were to watch any must-see games based on KenPom rankings, the best opponent that an ACC school is playing tonight is Winthrop, and they are 161, and that is who Clemson faces in their opening night. The next best team based on KenPom is Radford at 168, and that's who North Carolina opens up with. And then we've got Tarleton State at 220 playing UVA. The worst team to play against a ACC team tonight is, drum roll please, 357th ranked Coppin State heads to Blacksburg for an 8 p.m. tip against Virginia Tech. So that should be an interesting game. All ACC teams are home tonight. Everybody plays except for Florida State, and all teams are favored by, I think the closest one's 8.5 or 9.5 points. So anyway, that's your ACC update for you. Not a lot going on, but we'll see how that kind of plays out. Sometimes some funky things happen on opening night, but usually it's pretty tame. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about New Hampshire next. Nick, you want to start us off with New Hampshire? What are your first thoughts on these guys based on what we know so far?
Yeah, so they're returning, like you said, conference player, first team player, and Clarence Daniels. He's 6'6". He averaged 15 points, 10 rebounds last year. Plays a lot bigger than his 6'6" size. It'll be a good test for the forwards at Syracuse, especially not knowing what's going on with Benny Williams, which we'll get into later. But it'll be a nice test to go up against a guy who's a very good, should be player of the year in their conference at the end of the year if all things go well. They have a new coach just like Syracuse. It's a first game at their new schools for Adrian Autry and the coach for New Hampshire. He came from Bucknell, so we all know what Bucknell was. They were run and gun, up and down the floor. We'll see if he brings that style to New Hampshire. Probably won't be right away as he's trying to get his players in there and get everybody on the same page offensively. But it should definitely be a tougher opponent than what we've seen in the exhibition games, for sure. With that being said, I don't know if it should be a breeze through from Syracuse if they played like they have played in their first two exhibition games.
Yeah, and I agree. And based on Daniels, right? So like you said, he's 6'6". He's a senior. He was first team all conference, played almost 35 minutes a game last year. Shot 39.5% from three, while also averaging 15 and 10. So he does a little bit of everything for him. The ball is in his hands a lot. I don't think he's back to the basket too much, but he's just kind of more of a slasher and a shooter type guy. He's tough, though. He's tough. He's probably one of the leading candidates for their conference player of the year. They also have a kid named Jackson Baker. He's a 6'8" grad student. He played all 30 games and started 5. But he shot 36% from three at 6'8", 86% from the free throw line, but he only took 15 shots. So he's kind of like a big guy who plays on the outside, probably a stretch 4 type player for them. Beyond that, they don't return a ton of experience. They lost their second, third, fourth, and sixth leading scorer. So yes, they returned Daniels, which is big time for them, but they lost a lot. Especially at the guard spot. They did get some new guys who came in, a couple community college kids, a couple JUCO kids, a grad transfers from Mount St. Mary's. But I imagine one or two of them will probably start just because their guards on the current roster don't really have, or did not have, impressive numbers last year. So they'll probably have some new faces in the guard spots, and then they'll have some experience down low. I don't. They have Ridvan Tutik. I don't know if that's how you say it, but he started 22 games for them last year. He's more of a banger. Does not shoot threes, but also shot 59% from the line. So I expect them to probably be a little more inside focused, unless these guards that Coach Davis brought in are legit, right? So, and we can talk about their numbers real quick. They brought a guy from NYC, Dior Davis, 14.3 points last year, led his team in steals and assists, combo kind of guard. Another guard, Ahmad Robinson, he's 5'10", from Western Texas College. He averaged 17 points and 5.4 assists. So, I mean, I imagine one of those guys is probably going to run the show for them. They might even play both of them together. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I think that they have a ton of question marks. Like I said, especially in that guard spot. They were picked 8th out of 9 teams in the conference. So, they're not very high. The conference is not very high on them either, even given the fact that they have Daniels. So that's probably a sign that the supporting pieces were not super impressive last season. Yeah. So we'll see. Like it's day one. There's not any film. We have no data to go on. So it's a lot of speculation. Anything you want to add to that, Nick, about the Wildcats?
No, like you said, I think with having a bunch of new pieces, I mean, really only, like you said, out of their top 6 guys last year, 2 are returning, but one of them is still really a question mark at the end of the day. So I guess we'll see how these new kids come in and play. It'll probably be a work in progress their first couple games for sure. I mean, like you said, they played at junior colleges, and they were impressive. They averaged 14 points, 17 points. But what happens? I mean, you're coming to play a Division I Power 5 school. It's not the same level of talent, and that's no disrespect to anybody at the junior college level, because that's just as hard to play in as any other level. But to try to throw it all together, especially in their first game, or I should say first game that really counts, it's going to be tough. And obviously, like I said, with 2 new head coaches on both sides, you got to imagine that this game means a little bit more for Syracuse than their exhibition games did. I know everybody was hyped up for those to see what Adrian Autry was going to bring in and things like that, but now it really counts. This is where it shows on your record now. So you win this game, you're now 1-0 instead of 0-0 at the end of the day. So I'd imagine that Syracuse comes out pretty amped up, especially in front of a home crowd.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and if you look at their numbers from last year, they were very poor offensively. They were 319. And again, these could be meaningless based on what they do this year, but they were 319th offensively. They played very, very slow, 329th with pace. They took care of the ball. They didn't offensive rebound well. They were one of the worst teams from 2-point percentage. So it's like they have a lot of kind of alarmingly bad numbers. 31% of their offense came from 3. So you can kind of see that a little bit in their numbers with some of their shooters. Again, we don't know much about the guards, but they do have Daniels shot 39.5%. Baker shot 36.2%. They have a sophomore guard, Christian Moore, shot 32.4%. They have another sophomore that shot 44.4%. Another guy at 30. So they've got guys who will shoot it from deep, which is always one of those things that I feel like Syracuse fans used to fear when we play zone. It's like, oh God, these guys can shoot. Oh God, they're not good, but they can shoot. So who knows, right? Kind of equalize things a little bit. So, it might be a little tougher for those guys to get the kind of looks they want due to the athleticism and the fact that, they're not going to be a lot of swinging it around the perimeter for open threes, hopefully anyway. So, so that's what we got on New Hampshire. Like I said, a lot of new things, new coaches, new coach. About half the roster is brand new. Davis is going to be somewhat familiar with Syracuse because, we play them from time to time. He's an NCAA tournament coach in 2017, 2018. So I think he's a great pickup for them in their program for sure.
Yes.
But will he be able to make the big jump right now with a limited roster? We'll see. All right. So Syracuse. Okay, so you mentioned a couple things. I think the big questions tonight for the Orange are going to be obviously what the heck is going on with Benny Williams. Do we have him? Has he been practicing? I don't know the answer to all these questions. Maybe you've seen things. I haven't seen anything at all. It's been crickets for me. Have you seen or heard anything at all?
So, obviously, I follow a lot of Syracuse guys on social media. I coach with Eric Devendorf for his AAU program, so pretty close. Um, but I know at practice the other day, Benny was in practice. He was participating. I don't think he's suspended from the program right now. I think it was just suspended as he wasn't playing in the second exhibition game. I do not know as of right now about tonight. I would imagine we'd know. I mean, Syracuse tips off at 7, so I'm assuming when they hit the floor around 5:30, media and stuff starts to get into the dome and things like that. We'll know more on if he's warming up or what. Like I said, I have no idea what happens tonight. I don't know why he got suspended, but I do know he has been practicing, which is always a good sign that he's not away from the team per se. So, I mean, I would say probably 5:30, maybe closer to 6. You'd probably hear a little bit more on what's going on tonight. It all depends. I guess it all depends on what he did at the end of the day. But it'd be nice to have Benny tonight, especially against a guy like Clarence Daniels, who's 6'6" and plays in that forward position, especially because you know what Benny can bring to the table as opposed to our other forwards right now. I mean, I know they've played good, but 2 of them were freshmen last year, Chris Bell, Justin Taylor, or 3 of them, I should say, Malik Brown, 4 of them, Quadir Copeland. All of our forwards are young, so having that experience, Benny out there would be huge moving forward. But yeah, I mean, he was at practice, so I guess we'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, that's certainly a good sign. It's not a negative thing. Yeah, so I think that's one of the big questions. From what I'm assuming, Malik is good to go again, just a precautionary holdout.
Malik will play tonight. From what I've been told, it was just like you said, more precautionary. They didn't want to get him more hurt in a, I say air quote, meaningless game for them.
Yeah.
But Malik should, as long as he's feeling good today, Malik should be a go tonight, which would be a big boost for SU.
Yeah. They could get away with some things against, St. Rose inside but again, if New Hampshire has a strength, it is going to be kind of inside presence, rebounding and playing kind of inside out game. So it'd be nice to have.
I will say SU is, I mean, outside of Chance and outside of what we don't know about Benny yet, SU is 100% healthy going into this game.
Love it.
I did hear rumors. Again, I take them with a grain of salt until we actually see what happens. But we could have an update within the next week or 2 on Chance and a potential timetable for when he could be back.
Awesome.
But from what I heard, the program doesn't expect him to miss the whole season, which is always a good thing. But we'll see what happens. I mean, again, all we really know is it was a lower body injury and he had to have a procedure. That's all we really know. So it could have been anything. It could have been a minor surgery. It could have been a major surgery. I mean, we can speculate on the fact that he had knee issues at Auburn.
Yeah.
So did his knee act up again? But I did hear within the next week or 2, we could see an update come out, which is always a good thing.
That is good. That's really good to hear. Good. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I'm looking forward to seeing D1 competition, albeit New Hampshire, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But just, it'll be just a different kind of vibe and atmosphere. I think they won't coast as much. You know how it is. I mean, you coach, I've coached. When you scrimmage and when you're playing, it's just a whole, there's levels to this. Right. And
it means something, right? It's their first game of the season.
Yeah.
Now if you win, now it shows 1-0 on the record as opposed to 0-0 at the end of the day.
Yeah. And again, like you knew watching those games the last couple of weeks is that Syracuse could just cruise. And if they wanted to flip the switch, they could, and they did at times. This is going to be more of a situation. These next couple games, they got New Hampshire here. They got Canisius, who I think is a little underrated as far as mid-majors go, especially based on their maybe scrimmage results. which again, take those with a grain of salt too. But there's a little bit of quiet noise out of Canisius. I've been hearing around the mid-major world about them being a solid. So that'll be a good challenge. And obviously you got Colgate in 8 days, I believe, before we head off to Maui. So this is a very critical stretch for Syracuse to A, try some things, and B, figure out who they're going to be. And it's kind of weird. I've been impressed with the fact that it seems like they have an identity so far. How easily they just kind of flowed into, well, this is who we are. These are us playing to our strengths and maybe that's with Judah coming back with more experience, not having to worry about getting Joe Girard the ball or Jesse Edwards the ball or do this or that. And now that it's Judah's team, it just seems like it's kind of flowing a little bit. And again, we're talking about exhibition games, but at the same time, it just looks and feels a little bit more. I think it feels more focused and intentional than maybe it kind of has.
Yeah, it kind of feels like when they're on the floor, it's not, like you said, it's not getting Joe his shots or making sure we feed Jesse in the paint or things like that. It feels more of, let's just run. Let's run. Let's have flow to our offense. And it doesn't matter who's hot, what night. Just move the ball, move yourself, be a team. It seems more team-oriented this year. And that's I'm not harping on anything that we've done in the past, but it just seems like these guys buy in for each other. And they know that if they play the way that they can play, how far they think they could go with this team. I mean, I was on Twitter this weekend, and there was a couple guys that were answering questions, college basketball people. And one of them, somebody asked about Syracuse, and he said that for their ceiling, he could see Syracuse being a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament, as well as a team that could possibly make the Elite Eight. Again, we haven't really – I mean, this is our first real game of the season, and this is the first time we've had a new coach, a new philosophy in almost 50 years. So we'll see. Obviously, that's the ceiling for this team from college basketball analysts. But, I mean, when you watch March Madness basketball, the two things I took away last year for the teams that made runs were guard play was a major thing. A lot of those teams that made the Elite Eight had 2 guards, had 3 guards that could make plays. And I mean, we've talked about it during the exhibition season with Judah, JJ, and even the emergence of how Kyle has looked early on in the season. And obviously, if we could get Chance back and get him geared up for a run at the end, Chance is another guard too. So, I mean, Syracuse has that. And then you always need a big that can play defense and rebound the ball and things like that. And they have that. So, I mean, Syracuse has the makings of a team that could make a deep run. Obviously, there's some things that have to go their way. We would need to see Benny be Benny. And hopefully, as the season goes on, we can become a better three-point shooting team with Chris and Justin and things like that. But it should be a fun season for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you hate to speculate too much, obviously. I'm not going to say the NCAA tournament words until we see a little bit more. But I do, like we said a couple seconds ago, I'm cautiously optimistic. And like I think we talked off air, just like this team seems to be passing more of the eye test of what does a successful Power 5 basketball team look like as far as how they play, the style they play, the type of players they have, the level of athleticism and basketball IQ. Like this team seems to fit that more so than we've probably seen in a while, and it probably would have fit that even more if Chance Westry was around, but he's not. So until he is, we're going to roll with these guys, obviously, and next man up. And we've been preaching depth.
I think the big eye test is going to be Maui. And we've talked about it. It's not necessarily going in and winning 4 games and winning the Maui tournament. It's just going in, competing at a high level against teams that are in the top 25 already.
Yeah. And I think we'll at least right now, today, November 6th, I feel that if you put Syracuse on the floor with those teams, they're not going to look wildly out of place. I feel like we've looked wildly out of place at times the last 2 or 3 years. Just like we can't win this game. Like we cannot. We don't have the horses to get it done here. It's like what I said I wasn't going to talk about football, but it's like watching football play. Like when football plays Clemson, Florida State, UNC. It's like
I'll go back.
It's like we don't belong. And I felt that way a little bit about the Syracuse team for hoops the last couple of years. And I feel like this team has the players where they will look like they belong.
Yeah, I mean, you go back even last year when we went to Illinois. I think it was a Monday night or something. It was during the week. We went to Illinois, and I think we lost by almost I think it was close to 40, 30, 35, something like that. And you could tell just from tip that it wasn't – we weren't competing at that level at that time. Mm-hmm. And it's just sad to see. But again, we have a new coach now. We have, when you really fully healthy, when you look at this roster, you could go 10, 11, even 12 guys deep if you had to. I don't know the last time you could say that we could go more than 8 deep. We basically have a starting 5 from starting and from the bench. And you'd probably have to go back 8, 9 years to even imagine having 10 guys that could play and you wouldn't miss a beat. So it's exciting. And like I said, these first 3 games to figure out, that's why as a Syracuse fan, I hope Benny does get to play tonight to get these 3 games to really grind in before you head to Maui and play some top-notch competition.
Yeah. It's not even about playing tonight. It's about down the road.
It's not tonight. It's more of take these 3 games and really, really rep it out. So it'll be interesting. I will say that if Benny doesn't play, I think they go obviously JJ Judah and Naheem McLeod are 3 of your 5, but I think they go Justin and Chris Bell only because Malik didn't really play in exhibition, so I don't know if they throw him out to start tonight. But
I think it depends how healthy he is. Yeah.
I think if they go that route, I think you see Justin start the game on Clarence Daniels because Justin gives you that size at that position as opposed to like Chris. I don't mean size as in tall. I mean firm and stuff on the defensive end. Yeah. So I think you see Justin really get an opportunity early in the season to guard a guy of that caliber to see what he can do. And then you play Chris Bell kind of as your 4. So I just don't know if you can throw Malik in a starting role after I think he only played 7 minutes total in the exhibition. So
yeah, I guess it probably depends on how healthy he is. Like if he's 100%, like maybe if he's been having some good practices, I think it depends a lot on that. I think it makes more sense for him probably to start in this one. But like you said, like if all things are equal, but like you said, I think Justin's earned time. I think he made the most of his opportunity to get some more burn in his exhibition game, and he does add a little more physicality on that matchup. And I think he's an underrated defender. I think he's got a ways to go, but I think he plays hard. Like he's going to do all he possibly can, and he's going to scrap.
He reminds me of. I'm gonna throw a crazy name out there because a lot of people you wouldn't say defender at the end of the day, but he kind of reminds me of a bigger Trevor Cooney. Trevor Cooney, at Syracuse, as he grew in the Syracuse program, he became. He was a very underrated guy at the top of that 2-3 zone, and I feel like with the more playing time and more chances he gets, and the more freedom he has a chance to really grow in this program, and kind of like Buddy did. Every year Buddy got better. And by the time he was a senior, he averaged almost 15, 16 points a game in a Division I ACC. So, I feel like that's if Justin gets the playing time and the experience, that's where he could head.
Yeah, agree. All right, so keys of success for tonight for the Orange. Again, bear with us, guys. These are based on a lot of speculation, and we'll have more that we can talk about with these guys later. But I think for me, getting out in transition, I don't see a plan where New Hampshire hangs around if Syracuse can get out in transition, whether that's in turnovers. They're too good in transition, and we know that we don't know much. We do know that Syracuse is going to be more athletic than New Hampshire is. So if they can get out and go, I think that's key. I think that obviously my two worries are shooting better from three. I like to see that number at 35-ish% rather than the 20-some it has been. I think that's a big key. And I think that we need to rebound better. Keeping New Hampshire off the glass. The only things that can keep New Hampshire in this game is if Syracuse doesn't, get out and go, or they don't keep them off the glass, right? Like if Daniels does his thing, if Tudyk, the other big guy, Baker, if those guys do their things and get putbacks and rebounds and second opportunities for these guys, it's not going to be good. So like I said, 22% of Damon's missed shots are rebounded by themselves, and 40-some+% of St. Rose's, right? And I know we didn't have Benny or Malik. So those are two areas that I would like to see those numbers be higher in. And obviously the third key is going to be, contain Stud, right? Make sure we neutralize him as much as possible. He's probably going to get his to a certain extent.
Players like that at this level.
Yeah, you just can't let him kill you, right? You can't let him kill you. And keeping him in check and not letting him don't let him go off, basically. So I'm interested to see how, playing man now, right? Like, so how does Autry go about? Like, what are Autry's philosophies with star players? Like, is he going to send two? Is he going to send doubles in the post? Is he going to, push a certain way? I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see the strategy changes versus like in the 2-3. What do you do with a guy like Daniels? Like you shade to him. It's just different. There's more options for what they can do.
I mean, last year you play a guy like that, and teams, as the season went on, teams noticed you put guys like that right at the free throw line where Syracuse isn't. Yeah, where Syracuse isn't. They were a little prone to kind of suck in as a defense because they didn't want to get the ball sprayed around and threes falling. Yep. So, I mean, a lot of guys made their money from the free throw line last year. I know when we played Virginia Tech, their forward, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but their forward played there, and he had a triple-double or close to a triple-double. It was the same thing when we played I think Clemson, they put P.J. Hall in that position or Hunter Tyson in that position. And, I mean, that's where you put your playmakers and they spray the ball around because Syracuse is in a hole where if they collapse, they didn't really have the athleticism too much to get out and contest shots. Or if they didn't collapse, then it was a one-on-one with Jesse Edwards. And at times last year he committed too many lazy, stupid falls, so he would go to the bench or he'd have to play off a little bit. So now playing man, I'm very curious to see how Adrian Autry goes about those little things. But I will say, I love your keys to success. I will say your get out and transition. I think they need to do that on both ends of the floor. Not only run, but get up and press these guys a little bit. And I mean, like you said, they have two new guards who came from junior college who, at the end of the day, could start for this team tonight. And let's get out. Let's put some pressure on them. See if we can turn the ball over. I think a key stat this year for Syracuse in a lot of their games is going to be fast break points, because even when you look at the ACC, I don't know how many teams have the athletic ability that Syracuse does. So to get out and run, and if we can win fast break points, it's going to go a long way this season, especially with our guard play. So let's speed them up a little bit.
Yeah, and if you're getting fast break points, that means you're either forcing turnovers or you're rebounding. Right?
Yeah,
which means
you said another thing was rebounding. So if you're getting fast break points, then you're cleaning up the glass. You're not giving up offensive rebounds.
You're going. Yeah, exactly. So
Syracuse
very.
Yeah, and Syracuse, I mean, when you look at it, you got Judah, JJ, Chris, Justin, Malik, Chance when Chance gets healthy, Quadir, Kyle. You got guys that if they get the rebound, they can dribble up the court and push the ball. They don't have to wait for. Last year, it seemed like they waited for Judah. They were looking for Judah to bring the ball up the court. This year, it doesn't have to be that way. You have enough guys that you can run up and down the court, and Benny can get a rebound and start pushing the ball, or Chris Bell or Justin, or just it seems a little different this year than it has in the past.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm interested in looking at. Being kind of like a numbers guy is taking a look at things like tempo and just like how's the box score going to be different this year than with a predominantly zone defense. Like, what is Syracuse going to be better at? What are they going to be worse at? I'm interested to see once we get a bigger sample of data what that looks like and kind of compare those things side by side. Not to say one's better than the other, but just out of curiosity, because a lot of the things. Yeah.
I mean, you run, you get transition points, you get layups, and then it starts opening up when you run. Now you get your 3-point shooters wide open shots or better looks or just the little things like that is going to help this team in the long run. You're not going to be able to play half-court defense 65, 75% of the time every game and be successful, especially in college basketball. So if you can make it a 50-50 game where you're pushing the pace and like even pressing, let's press and get some deflections, get some turnovers, and just the more possessions you have as a college basketball team, the better off you are at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep, I agree. All right, so to wrap things up for you guys, we'll talk about the spread here. So it opened up with Syracuse about 14.5. Now it's up to 16 as of 10:45 in the morning game day. So Vegas seems to like the orange a little more later on in the day than they did a couple of days ago. Ken Palm has the score prediction of 77-64 Syracuse with a 90% chance to win. So Vegas likes this more than Ken Palm does. But again, we've talked about the Ken Palm numbers and how it's just too early to really know too much. So any thoughts on that line? Would you take that? Would you take 16?
Right now,
would you bet on that?
I guess it depends if Benny plays, but I think even without Benny, from what we've seen in exhibition, I think they cover 16. I know it's a Division I opponent, but I feel like this is, like I said, they've been very hyped up for exhibition games, so I can only imagine that this game is going to be the intensity is going to be there a little bit more. Like we said, this game counts now. It all starts tonight, and I feel like they can definitely make some noise, especially early in the season. But I think I would take 16. I will say one thing. I know we were talking about ACC games tonight. If anybody's interested, I know Syracuse plays at 7, but I think looking at the ACC slate tonight, I do think the one game that could be very interesting at the end of the day is Notre Dame Niagara.
True.
Notre Dame with I think Micah Strawberry took over from Penn State. Kind of brought in his own guys a little bit, but I was actually at a coach's clinic a couple weeks ago, out in Cortland, and Greg Paulus was there talking, and some of his players were there, and they look like they could have a very good season this year out in Niagara. So that's one Syracuse alumni, by the way. Greg Paulus played football at Syracuse, also played point guard for Coach K. I mean, you get the best of both worlds in the college world. So, but that could be a very interesting game at the end of the day. Notre Dame Niagara.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting one in the ACC slate too. Yeah, I didn't mention that one earlier. Also, Orange fans, Oregon, who Syracuse will play in Sioux Falls, they are in Vegas playing Georgia at 4:30 today. So if you're if you're free, then that's an interesting one to watch. I'll probably take a look at least the highlights of that one to see what Oregon brings to the table. Because that's for Syracuse. That's a NCAA tournament resume type opportunity, especially if Maui doesn't go super well.
And
so I wouldn't go ahead.
And another thing, Purdue does play tonight. I know everybody knows Purdue. That will be Syracuse's first opponent in Maui. If you just want to, what?
Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee is sorry. Purdue is a chance to play after that. But it'd be interesting to see. I know last year a big thing about Purdue was where does their offense come outside of Zach Edey? We saw that especially in the NCAA tournament when their guys couldn't hit the side of the backboard to save their life. So it'd just be interesting to see how they built that team. Matt Painter built that team around Zach Edey this year.
They're playing Samford, who is 139 Ken Palm. So it's not like Samford's not going to be just a typical garbage kind of matchup. They're probably one of the top 3 in the Southern Conference, which, if you remember, Furman is in the Southern Conference, and they took care of UVA last year in the tournament. So it's a pretty solid mid-major conference. I would not take Syracuse at 16. I think Syracuse will win, but I think they're going like 12 or 13. I think there's going to be a little, I think there's going to be a little bit of nerves. I think the unknowing about Benny, and I don't know. I think they might kind of jump ahead and then kind of coast the rest of the way. All right, how about this one though? Did you take the over or under of 141.5?
See, that's tough because even if you look at what Syracuse has done in the exhibition scoring wise, it's been around 80, 85 points a game. So like even at that rate, 141, if Syracuse scores 80, then New Hampshire would have to score 62 or more to have the over. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take the under. I will say I think I know we've talked about defense a lot with the 2 exhibition games and how Syracuse has gotten away with things just because of their athleticism. I think that you see a great defensive performance tonight from the Syracuse basketball team. I'm going to go on a limb here. I could be way off, but I think they hold New Hampshire to under 50.
Woo!
And I think you see a lot of pressing and trying to push the pace.
So we're opposite on everything today because I'm taking the over on that one. I think both teams score at least.
I say 50, so Syracuse should 50, have 90.
that I don't think that's happening. I'll be tickled pink if it does. All right, so we'll see. Maybe all year we can just keep track of our prediction on the over unders and the spread. We'll just kind of like tally it up. So all right, you got anything else you want to say before we go? Because that's all I got.
It starts tonight. So if you have a chance to get out to the dome. Watch these guys on the floor. If not, this is the first of many. First of many here. So hopefully this team can gel early in the season. Like we said, they got a big tournament coming up over Thanksgiving break when they had the Maui. So let's see what we can do this year.
And I'll say this: do not overreact and do not underreact. All right. So whatever happens, just don't overreact. Right. So if Syracuse plays well, we don't need to say we're back. Right. If Syracuse doesn't play well, we don't need to hear, oh, well, this roster, All right. Just again, it's one of 30 plus games. It's game 1. Let's view these first 3 games kind of as preseason. Obviously they count, but it's working out some more of those kinks and things that we'll see need to get fixed before that November, end of November, right? Honestly, end of November on, from Maui on is there's not a lot of easy games for Syracuse for the rest of the stretch.
The biggest 2 things you should look at these first 3 games. Things that we've talked about are Syracuse's 3-point shooting. That's going to be a big question mark this season. So look for that the first couple games of the season to see how they manage open shots and who kind of gets the majority. I know, if you watch the first 2 exhibition games, it's been Chris Bell and Justin Taylor have gotten a majority of the 3-point shots, which you would expect, and rebounding. I know we've harped on rebounding, but if Syracuse is going to play a lot of lineups where, we've heard rumors about where Malik could play the 5 or things like that, or 3-guard lineups, then their bigs are going to have to eat on the glass. McLeod and Hema and Peter Carey, if perhaps he gets in there, but they're going to have to clean up the boards if Syracuse wants to be a team that's going to get out and run. So just 2 little things to watch for in the first couple games of the season are 3-point shooting and rebounding.
Yep. All right. That's it from us, guys. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, do all those things that you guys do on podcasts, send it to your friends. We appreciate all the support we can get. If you want to follow me, I usually tweet during the games every now and then, at least at halftime, a couple of stats that don't always make the broadcast type stats. So give us a look. All right. Thank you guys. And on behalf of Nick Peckham, we are out of here. Have a good one.